Hello, I'm Paul Wells. This is chapter 3 of my story about developing an online piano teaching device. If you've missed chapters 1 and 2, there are links down in the description. Okay, so we're up to late 2018, which is about a couple of years ago from when this is being recorded now. And just to catch up quickly, I've found a design company who are interested in producing the design for what I'm proposing. And I'm partway through filling in their registration and application form. And I've stopped at the point where I'm pondering the name of the product. Well, what is this thing? It's an online teaching aid. It's a web-based piano teachers, assistants, technology. I think you can see I'm getting nowhere fast with this name. So I decided to park the problem of the name because there's actually a much more pressing issue. I'm from a software background. The software world and the intellectual property world, you can copyright software, but if you approach the patent/patent, I'm going with patent or patent interchangeably, you can come up with a new algorithm. You can come up with an innovative combination of existing algorithms, but the patent office, in all but a few exceptional cases, they're not interested in what you're offering. So I realized I was woefully ill-equipped for dealing with the issue of making any sort of patent claim or what exactly I needed in terms of intellectual property. Well, I live in central Milton Keynes. In central Milton Keynes, within walking distance of my home, I can get divorced, which I did do. I can get married again, which I also did do. But over in that direction, about 15 minutes walk, there is a 65,000 capacity arena. Over in, get my bearings that way, there's a university that boasts 174,000 undergraduates. But I think they've got a much more significant claim to fame, which is they are responsible for the tweed jackets, the long hair, the beards, and the late night BBC Two online study. Online being, yes, they were the innovators. They were the innovators of online learning, of distance learning. I don't know why I'm saying online, but certainly they were the pioneers of distance learning. There's a shopping centre. This is the shopping centre behind me. This shopping centre is, believe it or not, a kilometre's walk from one end to the other, and there's 2 legs to it, so there are 2 kilometres of shops, which when you think it was built over 40 years ago is actually quite an innovation. There's a Peace Pagoda, which is about 10 minutes behind me. So Milton Keynes as a town caters very well for a very large number of different human requirements. So finding an intellectual property lawyer who specialises in technological innovation wasn't difficult, just a couple of streets away. So I booked my 1-hour free consultation. I came out equipped with much more knowledge of what was involved. What I learned was there are 2 basic levels to what I need. There are 2 issues to address. So the first issue I need to solve is, what happens if I go down this route? I pay the design company, and then somebody knocks on the door and says, hey, you owe me. I've got a patent on this. Pay me royalties. Or, in fact, what's more likely, they'll serve me with something called a cease and desist, which, yes, is as frightening as it sounds. Well, clearly I didn't want that to happen. So what I needed, what I learned that I needed, I need something called a freedom to operate. What that amounts to is the patent lawyer will run a search of prior art and hopefully try to establish that everything I'm building is already covered by expired patents, in which case then, yes, nobody can make any claim against me. So I thought that sounded like a good idea. That was a no-brainer anyway. I was definitely going to need that. But there's also another level, and the way this works is... Actually, sorry, there's one other thing about freedom to operate. What I also learned was I can do an Amazon search for a device that lets me play my piano, and which results in a note being played, not just a note being played, but a light being put on a remote piano. The fact that you can't buy it doesn't mean that somebody somewhere doesn't hold a patent. In fact, there is nothing in the patent laws that says, effectively, use it or lose it. It's perfectly possible to be granted a patent, but then just sit on it and block all of the competition. So anyway, that was level one, if you like. And then the other level was to do with the patent system, the way the patent law works. What's supposed to happen is that if you invent something, if you innovate, as a reward for your innovative efforts, you have the market to yourself for a number of years, and that's your reward. So that's the law. That's what we've got to work with. Well, anyway, I decided that I'd decide later what was going to happen. Let's go down the route of getting the project started, and I'll see later on whether there's any scope for actually filing for my own patent, because that's the ultimate freedom to operate, is if you've actually got a document saying that you own the patent. It's a little bit more complicated because there's no such thing as a worldwide patent. Different countries and different blocks of countries and different regions, they have their own systems, and there's also interlinking between Europe and the USA, for example. So provided you get the timing right, you've got so much grace period. Having filed in one region, you can then proceed to file in another region, and that sort of thing. So it's complex. You'll need help with it. So anyway, fine. It was a bit much for my tiny brain to deal with, I realise. I was a bit confused by it all, but I wanted to get it kicked off. It's been 2 years. I want to get going with this thing. So the best name I can come up with is Piano Link. That'll have to do. It's not a great name. It's not very inspiring. It doesn't sound particularly easy to set up or anything, but that's it. That's all I've got. So, well, under normal circumstances, that would kind of be the end of this chapter. That's it. I've learned a bit about intellectual property. Then I got a phone call. My God, I got a phone call. I have a good friend who's been following what I've been doing for the last 2 years. So I've confided in him everything that's been happening. I mean, incidentally, I'd built up quite an impressive stack of non-disclosure agreements from all of the different design companies I'd approached and failed to get any further with. So yeah, I got this phone call. My friend, he'd been away somewhere for the weekend. He was driving back on a Sunday evening, and he was listening to a podcast, some sort of technology podcast. I don't know what exactly. And on this podcast, there were a couple of guys from somewhere in the north of England, Michael somebody and James somebody. Michael was a musician, YouTuber, piano teacher, and his business partner was a technologist. Anyway, the reason they were on this podcast was because they were just making the announcement of the general availability of this thing they'd built, which, as my friend described it, it sounded like just a bit of a black box and a stick with some lights on that you put on the keyboard. I knew what this call meant. I knew the gravity of what was being said. And I was thinking, oh my God, this is dreadful. I've been too slow, haven't I? I've missed it. And yeah, my friend said, yeah, it looks like Mike and Jim from Plug and Plink, they've gone ahead. They've also been granted a patent for Europe, USA and Canada. Yeah, they've got there first. My friend was really sympathetic. He tried to put the best spin on it that he could, saying that, you know, well, at least I'd tried, at least I'd had a good idea independently. If I can have one good idea, then possibly I can have another good idea at some point. So yeah, well, basically I knew what it meant. That's that. Oh gosh, I was gutted, absolutely gutted. My friend was saying, well, at least you didn't spend all that money on that design company and on that patent law as well. I mean, if you're going to find out, you might as well find out now, sort of thing. And then I had that funny feeling. You know that funny feeling? This is a bloody dream, isn't it? This isn't real. This is a dream. This is my subconscious playing with me, seeing. Let's run the worst case scenario and see what the reaction is. Let's see what he does. I was grappling with which bits are real, and if you've ever tried to get out of one of these things, pinching yourself does no good. Just try to speak. Your own voice will make you laugh if you try to speak. But anyway, I realised, yes, that bit's true. I have spent the last 2 years developing and researching a remote piano teaching tool. That's correct. I'm ahead of these guys. They haven't got a patent. That's not real. Who are these guys? These guys in Manchester, they don't exist. Their crappy black box and a stick doesn't exist. I'm still in. I'm still in. I'm game on. I'm still with it. And I was delighted. I was very happy that, yes, it was just a silly nightmare. So I thought, right, I'm going to fill that form in tomorrow morning. And I realised, what was the name of that company? Plug and Plink. Doesn't sound like anything I would have come up with, but it's interesting. It's kind of quirky, a little bit cheeky. Plug and Plink. Well, plug makes it sound techie. It sounds easy to set up. And Plink is a nice contraction of piano link. And Plink means, my God, of course, this is a brilliant name. I love this name. Plug and Plink. Yes, I'm having that. I'm having that. So that's where the name came from. I filled in the form. Plug and Plink was finally alive. The project was happening. I paid the deposit for milestone 1. So, in chapter 4, we will discuss the riveting subject of injection molded plastic. See you in chapter 4. $174,000 undergraduates, but I think much more significantly, they boast the...
You're doing it for YouTube?
I was doing, yes, until you interrupted.
Oh, sorry, mate.
I have to start again now. What were you going to say? What were you going to say?
I was asking you.
Okay. I'm going to start again. So, hello, I'm Paul Wells.